Hey there, have you ever had someone look at you and decide they know everything about you, even though they do? It's super annoying, right? Well, I've got a story that's gonna make you laugh, gasp, and maybe even cheer. It's all about a girl named Mia, and trust me, her story is wild. Before we jump in, I want you to do something fun. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from today. Are you at home, at school, maybe chilling at a park? Oh, and if you love cool stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more. Okay, let's get started. Picture this. It's a super sunny afternoon, the kind where the sky is bright blue and you can hear birds chirping all around. Mia, our main character, just moved into a fancy neighborhood. You know the kind, big houses with perfect green lawns, shiny cars in every driveway, and flowers that look like they're posing for a picture. But Mia, she didn't quite fit in, or at least that's what everyone thought. Mia was new. She was quiet, super polite, and liked to keep to herself. She wasn't loud or flashy like some of the other people in the neighborhood. She had this old car, a rusty beat-up thing that made funny noises when it started. It wasn't shiny or new like the other cars on the street, but Mia didn't care. She parked it right in her driveway and got to work unpacking her stuff. Boxes, bags, a lamp or two. She was carrying it all into her new house, humming a little song to herself. But here's the thing, someone was watching her. Not just watching, but staring, like Mia was doing something wrong just by being there. Here's a question for you to think about. What would you do if a total stranger got mad at you for no reason and called the cops on you? Sounds crazy, right? Well, hold on tight, because this story about to get super exciting and you're gonna want to stick around to see what happens next. Mia had no idea her old car was about to start a big problem. It wasn't loud or blocking anyone's way, but to one person it was like a giant red flag waving in the wind. That person, a woman named Karen. Yup, you heard me right, that kind of Karen. If you don't know what I mean, let me explain. Karen was the boss of the neighborhood, or at least she acted like she was. She walked around with her nose in the air, telling everyone what they could and couldn't do. Got a basketball hoop in your driveway? Karen would say it. Against the rules. Planted a tree in your yard? Karen would complain it was too messy. She had an opinion about everything, and she wasn't shy about sharing it. Karen lived across the street from Mia's new house. From her big, fancy window, she could see everything Mia was doing, and oh boy, did she have thoughts about Mia's car. To Karen, that rusty old thing was like a stain on her perfect neighborhood. She didn't even know Mia's name, but she'd already decided Mia didn't belong. Who is this girl? Karen muttered to herself, sipping her coffee and narrowing her eyes. That car is a disaster. It's ruining everything. Now Mia wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just moving in, minding her own business. She carried a box of books into the house, then came back for a bag of clothes. Her car sat quietly in the driveway, not hurting anybody. But Karen, she was already planning how to get rid of it. She didn't even stop to think about who Mia was or why she was there. All she saw was that car, and it made her mad. Here, where things get interesting. Mia wasn't just some random girl with a junky car. Nope. She was hiding something big. Nobody in the neighborhood, not even Karen, had any clue about it. Mia's secret was like a surprise gift waiting to be unwrapped, and when it finally came out, it was going to turn this whole neighborhood upside down. Can you guess what it might be? Don't worry if you can't. I'm not gonna spill the beans just yet. You've gotta keep listening to find out. Let's go back to that sunny afternoon. Mia was busy unpacking, but she wasn't totally alone. A few neighbors peeked out their windows, curious about the new girl. Some waved, some didn't. Most of them didn't think much of her. She's probably just renting, one guy said to his wife. That car doesn't look like it belongs here, another neighbor whispered. They didn't say it to be mean, they just didn't know Mia yet. But Karen, she wasn't curious. She was annoyed, and when Karen got annoyed, she got loud. Karen marched out of her house, her phone in one hand and a frown on her face. She stood on her lawn, staring at Mia's car like it had personally insulted her. Mia noticed her but didn't say anything. She just kept unpacking, carrying a little table into her house. Karen huffed and puffed, then started typing something on her phone. What was she doing? Was she texting a friend, complaining to someone? Or was she about to do something bigger, something that would make this day unforgettable? You'll find out soon, I promise. Mia's car wasn't the only thing catching attention. Her house was small compared to the others, but it was cute, with a bright red door and a tiny garden out front. Mia seemed happy to be there. She'd smile at the birds flying by or wave at a kid riding a bike. She wasn't trying to cause trouble, she just wanted to settle in. But trouble has a funny way of finding people, doesn't it? Especially when someone like Karen is around. Let's talk about Mia for a second. She wasn't tall or loud or super fancy. She wore simple clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, and sneakers. Her hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she had this calm way about her, like nothing could rattle her. If you saw her on the street, you might not think twice, but that's what made her so special. Mia wasn't what she seemed in that rusty old car. It wasn't just a car. It was part of her plan, part of her secret. Karen, on the other hand, was the opposite. She loved attention. She wore bright clothes and big sunglasses, even when it wasn't that sunny. Her house was the biggest on the street, with perfect white shutters and a mailbox that sparkled in the sun. Karen thought she was in charge of everything, and most of the neighbors let her get away with it. Why? Because it was easier than arguing with her. But Mia, she wasn't like the others. She wasn't afraid of Karen, even if Karen didn't know it yet. As Mia carried another box into her house, Karen made up her mind. She wasn't going to let this problem go. That car has to go, she said to herself, stomping back inside her house. She didn't know Mia, didn't care about Mia's story. All she cared about was keeping her neighborhood perfect. But here's the thing about perfection, it's not real, and Mia was about to prove it. The sun was still shining, the birds were still singing, but something was brewing. It was like the calm before a big storm. Mia kept working, unaware that Karen was about to make a move that would change everything. What was Karen planning? Why was Mia so calm? And what was in that car that made it so important? I know you're curious, I am too. But we're just getting started, and I promise it's only gonna get better from here. So what do you think so far? Is Karen being totally unfair, or does she have a point about Mia's car? And what's your guess about Mia's secret? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'm dying to hear them. Oh, and one more question to keep you thinking. Have you ever met someone who surprised you once you got to know them? Mia's that kind of person, and her story, about to take a turn you won't see coming. Keep watching, because this neighborhood drama is about to explode in the best way possible. Okay, let's dive into the juicy part where things start heating up. Picture this, Karen, the bossy lady of the neighborhood, was like the queen of the HOA. What's the HOA? It's a group that makes rules for the neighborhood, like how your yard should look or what color your house can be. Karen loved being in charge. She walked around with a big clipboard like it was her crown, scribbling notes about anything she didn't like. Forgot to mow your grass, Karen wrote you a ticket. Got a mailbox that wasn't shiny enough? Yup, Karen had a problem with that too. She was always watching, always judging. Now Mia's old rusty car. Oh boy, that car was like a giant spark to Karen's temper. It was parked right in Mia's driveway, not bothering anybody, but to Karen it was the worst thing ever. This junk doesn't belong here, she yelled one morning, standing on her perfect lawn across the street. Her face was all red and her eyes were shooting daggers at Mia's car. She waved her arms like she was trying to shoo away a pesky fly. Mia, though, she was outside, carrying a box into her house. When she heard Karen, she just looked up, gave a tiny smile, like the politest smile you've ever seen, and went back to her work. But inside her head, Mia was paying attention. She was keeping track of every word Karen said. Karen wasn't done, not even close. She didn't just yell and go away. Nope. She started talking to all the neighbors, whispering like she was sharing a big secret. Who does this girl think she is? She'd say, pointing at Mia's house. That car's a mess. She's trouble, I'm telling you. Karen would lean in close, her voice all sneaky, trying to get everyone on her side. Some neighbors nodded, not because they agreed, but because they didn't want to argue with Karen. She was loud, and arguing with her was like trying to argue with a thunderstorm, pointless and exhausting. Most people in the neighborhood didn't know Mia yet. They saw her old car, her plain clothes, and her quiet ways, and they just assumed she was some kid who didn't have much money. "She probably doesn't belong here," one lady said to her husband while they watered their flowers. "Yeah, that car's an eyesore," the husband agreed, shaking his head. They weren't trying to be mean, they just didn't know any better. They figured Mia was nobody special, someone who'd never fit in with their fancy houses and perfect lawns. But here's the coolest part: Mia didn't care what they thought, not one bit. Mia kept doing her thing. Every day she'd open the trunk of her rusty car and pull out boxes. Sometimes it was books, sometimes clothes, sometimes stuff nobody could quite see. She'd carry them into her house, humming a little tune like she was in her own world. Karen's glares, they bounced right off her. The whispers from the neighbor, Mia acted like she didn't even hear them. It was like she had a secret shield, something that kept her calm no matter what. And you know what? She did have a secret. A big one. What was in that trunk? Why was Mia so chill when everyone else was getting worked up? Oh, you're gonna want to stick around to find out. Let's zoom in on Karen for a second. She wasn't just bossy, she was proud of it. She had the biggest house on the street, with sparkly white shutters and a lawn so green it looked like it was painted. She'd walk around in her fancy shoes, her sunglasses perched on her nose, telling everyone how to keep the neighborhood nice. But really, she just wanted to control everything. If you didn't follow her rules, she'd make your life miserable. And Mia's car. To Karen, it was like a big sign saying, "I don't care about your rules." That drove her nuts. One afternoon, Karen decided to take things up a notch. She stood on her porch staring at Mia's house and called a neighbor named Susan. "Susan, have you seen that car?" Karen said, her voice sharp like a knife. "It's ruining our street. We can't let people like her move in and mess everything up." Susan, who was nice but a little scared of Karen, just mumbled, Yeah, it's not great." Karen didn't need more than that. She hung up the phone and smiled, like she was winning a game nobody else was playing. Mia, meanwhile, was outside again. She opened her car trunk and pulled out a small box, holding it carefully like it was important. A kid riding by on his bike slowed down to watch. "What's in there?" he called out, curious. Mia just winked at him and said, "Just stuff for my house." The kid grinned and rode off, but he couldn't stop wondering. That box didn't look like clothes or dishes. It looked special. Mia carried it inside, still humming, still calm, like nothing in the world could bother her. Karen saw the whole thing from her window. She didn't like that wink Mia gave the kid. She didn't like Mia's smile. She didn't like anything about Mia. "That girl's up to something," Karen muttered, tapping her fingers on her clipboard. She started writing something down, her pen moving fast. Was it a note about Mia's car, a plan to get her in trouble? Whatever it was, Karen was getting ready to make a big move. And Mia, she was ready too, even if nobody knew it yet. The neighborhood was starting to buzz. People talked about Mia when they walked their dogs or checked their mailboxes. "She seems nice, but that car," one guy said, shrugging. "Karen's really mad about it," another neighbor replied, looking nervous. They didn't know what to think. Mia was so quiet, so polite, but Karen was so loud, so sure of herself. Most people just stayed out of it, waiting to see what would happen next. But the air felt heavy, like something big was coming. It was like when you're waiting for a storm. You can't see it yet, but you know it's close. Mia wasn't blind to what was going on. She saw Karen watching her. She heard the whispers when she walked to her mailbox, but instead of getting mad or scared, she just kept going. She'd wave at people, even if they didn't wave back. She'd smile at kids playing in the street, and every time she opened that trunk, she'd glance around like she was making sure nobody was too close. What was she hiding? Why wasn't she worried about Karen's big attitude? It was like Mia knew something the rest of the neighborhood didn't. A secret that was going to change everything. Karen's complaints were getting louder every day. She'd stop neighbors on their walks and point at Mia's house. "We have standards here," she'd say, her voice carrying across the street. "That car's got to go, and I'm going to make sure it does." Some people rolled their eyes when Karen wasn't looking. They were tired of her bossing everyone around, but nobody spoke up, not yet. They didn't know Mia was watching, waiting, and getting ready for the perfect moment to show everyone who she really was. All right, let's keep this story rolling. Things are getting spicy now. Days went by in the fancy neighborhood, and Karen, the bossy HOA queen, was getting more and more grumpy about Mia's old rusty car. She wasn't just complaining anymore, she was taking action. One morning, Karen marched right up to Mia's front door and banged on it so hard the whole street could hear. "Move that eyesore car," she yelled, her face all scrunched up like she'd eaten a sour lemon. "It's ruining our neighborhood." Mia opened the door, calm as a sunny day. She didn't yell back or look scared. She just stood there, listening to Karen's big speech about rules and standards. When Karen finally stopped to catch her breath, Mia tilted her head and said, "Okay, do what you want." Then she closed the door nice and slow and went back to unpacking her boxes. Karen's jaw dropped. She wasn't used to people ignoring her like that. "I'm calling the police," she shouted, loud enough for every neighbor to hear. Most people would freak out if someone said that, right? But Mia, she didn't even blink. She walked to her car, grabbed another box, and kept humming her little song like nothing happened. Weird, huh? The neighbors were starting to notice. They'd peek out their windows or chat by their mailboxes, whispering about Mia. "What's with that girl?" one lady asked, watering her flowers. "Karen's so mad, but Mia doesn't care at all." A guy pushing a stroller nodded. "Yeah, it's strange. Why she's so chill? Nobody could figure it out." Usually when Karen got mad, people would apologize or fix whatever she didn't like just to keep the peace. But Mia was different. She wasn't scared, and she wasn't backing down. It was like she knew something nobody else did, something that made her smile even when Karen was yelling. One day, something super interesting happened. A neighbor named Tom was out walking his dog, a fluffy little pup named Max. Tom was a curious guy who liked to know what was going on. As he passed Mia's house, he saw her by her car, the trunk wide open. Mia was sorting through some boxes, and Tom couldn't help himself. He slowed down and peeked over the fence. What he saw made his eyes go wide. There were papers, folders, and all kinds of stuff in the trunk. But the thing that really caught his attention: a shiny badge-looking thing, like something a police officer or a detective might have. It glinted in the sunlight, and Tom blinked, wondering if he was seeing things. Mia didn't notice Tom at first. She was busy, flipping through papers and tucking things into a bag. Tom's dog barked and Mia looked up, but she didn't seem mad. She just waved at Tom and closed the trunk with a soft thud. Tom waved back, feeling a little embarrassed for snooping. He didn't tell Karen what he saw, not yet. He wasn't sure what it all meant, but he couldn't stop thinking about it. "Who is this girl?" he muttered to Max as they walked away. "That badge, those papers, they weren't normal moving stuff, were they?" Tom's brain was buzzing with questions, but he kept it to himself for now. Meanwhile, Karen was on a mission. She was done waiting for Mia to move her car. "This has gone on long enough," she told her friend Susan over the phone, packing back and forth on her perfect lawn. "I'm calling the police right now. That car's suspicious, and I'm not letting some stranger ruin our street." Susan tried to calm her down, but Karen wasn't listening. She hung up and dialed 911, her voice loud and proud. "Hello, yes, there's a suspicious vehicle parked in my neighborhood," she told the operator. "It's old and rusty, and the person who owns it is causing trouble. You need to send someone right away." Karen stood by her mailbox, arms crossed, smirking like she'd just won a big prize. She thought the police would roll up, tell Mia to move her car, and that'd be the end of it. Oh, how wrong she was. Karen had no idea what was coming, but we're not there yet. Let's just say trouble was brewing, and it wasn't the kind Karen expected. Back at Mia's house, she was still unpacking, cool as ever. A kid named Jake rode by on his bike and waved at her. "Hey Mia, why's Karen so mad about your car?" he called out, slowing down. Mia laughed, a soft, easy laugh that made Jake smile. "Some people just don't like old cars, I guess," she said with a shrug. Jake nodded, but he wasn't so sure. He'd heard his parents talking about Mia, saying she was mysterious. Jake didn't know what that meant, but he liked Mia. She was nice, and she didn't treat him like a little kid. The neighborhood was getting noisier with gossip. People weren't just whispering anymore, they were talking out loud. "Karen says Mia's trouble," one guy said while mowing his lawn. "But she seems okay to me," his wife replied, trimming a bush. "I don't know, there's something about her," another neighbor said, walking her dog. "She's too calm, like she's hiding something." They weren't wrong, but they weren't right either. Mia wasn't hiding because she was scared. She was hiding something way bigger, something that would make everyone's jaws drop. Every day, Mia kept working. She'd open her trunk, pull out a box, and carry it inside. Sometimes she'd look around like she was checking to see if anyone was watching too closely. One time, a lady named Mrs. Lopez walked by and stopped to chat. "Settling in okay, dear?" she asked, her voice kind. Mia nodded. "Yup, getting there, thanks for asking." Mrs. Lopez smiled, but as she walked away, she noticed Mia glance at her trunk again, like it held something super important. Mrs. Lopez didn't say anything, but she wondered what was going on. Karen's yelling was getting worse. She'd stand on her porch, pointing at Mia's house and telling anyone who'd listen that Mia was breaking all the rules. "We have standards," she'd say, waving her clipboard. "That car's got to go or I'll make sure she's out of here." Some neighbors rolled their eyes when Karen wasn't looking. They were tired of her bossing everyone around, but nobody wanted to fight her. Karen was like a big storm cloud. You just stayed out of her way and hoped she'd pass. But Mia, she wasn't dodging the storm. She was ready for it. Every time Karen yelled, Mia would just nod or wave like she was saying, "Go ahead, do your thing." It drove Karen crazy. Why wasn't Mia arguing? Why wasn't she scared? The neighbors were wondering the same thing. They didn't know it yet, but Mia was like a puzzle, and all these little moments, the badge, the papers, her calm smile, were pieces starting to come together. The air in the neighborhood felt heavy now, like something big was about to happen. Karen thought she was in control, calling the police and making her plans. But Mia, she was steps ahead and nobody saw it coming. What was in that trunk? Why was Mia so sure of herself? You're gonna love finding out, so don't go anywhere. This story, about to get even wilder. Alright, you guys, hold on tight because this is where the story gets super crazy. It was a bright, sunny afternoon, and the whole neighborhood was about to get a big surprise. Two police cars rolled down the street, their lights flashing red and blue. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Kids on bikes froze. Neighbors peeked out their windows. Even the birds seemed to go quiet. Karen, the bossy HOA lady, was standing on her perfect green lawn, her arms crossed tight. She had a big smirk on her face, like she just won a huge game. "That's her," she shouted, pointing right at Mia, who was leaning against her rusty old car, looking as calm as a summer breeze. Karen thought she had it all figured out. She called the police, telling them Mia's car was suspicious, and now she was sure the cops would make Mia move it, or maybe even kick her out of the neighborhood. Karen's eyes sparkled with excitement, like she was watching her favorite show. She pointed again, just to make sure the cops knew who she was talking about. "That's the girl with the junky car," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The neighbors were watching now, some standing on their porches, others creeping closer to see what was going on. They thought Mia was in big trouble. But then something totally unexpected happened. The two cops stepped out of their cars, and instead of walking toward Mia, they turned to Karen. Her smirk disappeared faster than ice cream on a hot day. Her face froze like she'd just seen a ghost. "Ma'am, we need to talk," one of the officers said, his voice serious. He pulled out a little notebook and started flipping through it. Karen blinked, confused. "What, me? No, you've got it wrong," she stammered, pointing at Mia again. "She's the problem, not me," But the cops didn't even look at Mia. They kept their eyes on Karen, and the whole street went super quiet. Mia, who'd been leaning against her car this whole time, stood up straight. She didn't look scared or worried, not one bit. She walked to the back of her car and popped open the trunk. Everyone was watching now, holding their breath. What was she doing? Was she going to pull out another box, or maybe run away? No. Mia reached inside and grabbed something shiny. She held it up high so everyone could see it. It was a badge, a real fancy badge that sparkled in the sunlight. The neighbors gasped like they were in a movie. Karen's jaw dropped so low it almost hit the ground. "I'm Mia Torres, private investigator," Mia said, her voice loud and clear. It wasn't mean or angry, just strong, like she knew exactly who she was. The whole street seemed to freeze. "Private investigator, Mia, the quiet girl with the rusty car? No way." The neighbors started whispering to each other, their eyes wide. "Did she just say?" one lady mumbled. "A private investigator," a guy whispered back. Even the kids on their bikes were staring, too shocked to move. Karen's face turned red, then white, then red again. She looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She just stood there, clutching her clipboard, her hands shaking. Mia didn't stop there. She reached into her trunk again and pulled out a big folder stuffed with papers. She held it up and started talking, calm but firm. "I was hired to look into some problems with the HOA," she said, looking right at Karen. "And guess what? I found some pretty bad stuff." The neighbors leaned in closer, trying to hear every word. Problems with the HOA? What did that mean? Mia opened the folder and showed everyone what she'd found. "Karen's been taking money," Mia said, holding up a piece of paper with numbers on it. "All those fines she made you pay, for your grass being too long or your mailbox being wrong. She wasn't giving that money to the HOA. She was keeping it for herself." Gasps went up all around. The neighbors looked at each other, then at Karen, then back at Mia. "What?" a man shouted from his porch. "She took our money," a lady asked, her hands on her hips. Karen shook her head, waving her arms like she could make it all go away. "That's not true," she yelled. "She's lying, I would never do that." But her voice was all wobbly and nobody believed her. The cops were writing stuff down now, nodding as Mia kept talking. Mia didn't yell or point fingers. She just laid it all out like a teacher explaining a math problem. "I've got proof," she said, flipping through her folder. "Bank records, emails, even notes Karen wrote to herself about the money she took." She held up another paper and the neighbors craned their necks to see. "She's been doing this for years, thinking nobody would notice, but I noticed." The cops stepped closer to Karen, their faces serious. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us," one of them said. Karen's eyes got huge. "No, you can't do this," she shouted, backing away. "This is my neighborhood, I'm in charge." But the cops weren't listening. They gently took her arm and Karen's clipboard fell to the grass with a soft thud. The neighbors were buzzing now, talking so loud it was like a swarm of bees. They couldn't believe it. Karen, the lady who bossed everyone around, was the one in trouble. Mia closed her folder and put it back in her trunk. She looked at the neighbors, who were still staring at her like she was a superhero. "I moved here to find the truth," she said, her voice steady. "That's my job. I'm sorry it had to happen like this, but nobody should be cheated." A few people started clapping, slow at first, then louder. Kids cheered, waving their hands in the air. Even Tom, the guy who'd peeked over Mia's fence, was grinning. He knew that badge he saw meant something big. Karen was still arguing with the cops, her voice getting quieter as they walked her to their car. "You've got the wrong person," she kept saying, but nobody was buying it. The neighbors were too busy looking at Mia, who was standing by her car, cool as ever. That rusty old trunk, it wasn't junky at all. It was like a treasure chest, full of secrets that turned everything upside down. The street was alive with chatter now. "I can't believe it," one lady said, shaking her head. "Mia's a detective?" a kid asked his mom, bouncing with excitement. "Private investigator," his mom corrected, smiling. Everyone was looking at Mia differently now. She wasn't just the new girl with the old car. She was someone important, someone who'd outsmarted Karen and saved the day. Mia didn't brag or make a big deal out of it. She just nodded at the neighbors like it was all in a day's work, but her eyes sparkled a little like she was happy to finally show who she really was. The cops were still talking to Karen and the neighbors were still buzzing, but Mia, she was already thinking about what came next. Her job wasn't done yet, not completely. Wow, what a wild day that was. After Mia dropped her big secret about being a private investigator, the whole neighborhood was buzzing. The cops were there, standing by Karen, who looked like she'd swallowed a bug. They started reading her rights, saying stuff like, "You have the right to stay quiet," just like in the movies. Karen's face was all red and she kept saying, "This is a mistake, you've got the wrong person." But nobody was listening to her anymore, not the cops, not the neighbors, nobody. Mia was super calm, like always. She opened her big folder and started showing everyone the proof she'd found. There were papers with numbers, bank records, and even secret emails Karen had sent. Mia held them up so everyone could see. "Karen took money from the HOA," she said, her voice clear and strong. "All those fines you paid for silly things like tall grass or wrong-colored curtains, she kept that money for herself." The neighbors gasped and looked at each other. They couldn't believe it. Karen had been sneaking thousands of dollars, thinking nobody would ever find out. The neighbors who used to ignore Mia or whisper about her rusty car were now crowding around her. "I'm so sorry," one lady said, her cheeks pink. "We didn't know," a man added, scratching his head. Another neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, asked, "How did you figure it out?" Mia just smiled, kind as ever, and said, "I'm here to fix things, that's my job." She didn't brag or act mad at anyone, even though lots of people hadn't been nice to her before. That made everyone like her even more. By the next week, things were totally different. Karen was gone. The cops took her away to face the law, and nobody saw her bossy clipboard ever again. The neighborhood felt lighter, like a big storm cloud had moved on. The HOA got new leaders, nice ones who didn't yell or make up silly rules. They promised to be fair and listen to everyone, not just boss people around like Karen did. The neighbors were so happy they even threw a little party to celebrate. And Mia's car, that rusty old thing, stayed right in her driveway, exactly where it was. Nobody complained about it anymore. Instead, it was like a reminder: don't judge someone before you know their story. Mia's car wasn't junk, it was part of her plan, part of how she saved the day. People started seeing it differently, like it was kind of cool. The neighbors were super nice to Mia now. When she walked to her mailbox, people waved and smiled. Kids would shout, "Hi, Mia," as they rode their bikes. One morning, Tom, the guy who'd peeked over her fence, brought her a cup of coffee. "Thanks for what you did," he said, grinning. Mrs. Lopez dropped off a plate of cookies, and even little Jake, the kid on the bike, drew Mia a picture of her car with a big star on it. Mia thanked everyone, her smile as warm as the sun. Everything felt right again, like the neighborhood was a team. Mia didn't just catch a bad guy, she showed everyone that being kind and fair matters more than fancy houses or bossy rules. And that's how things settled down, with Mia's car parked proudly and the neighborhood happier than ever. Okay, everyone, we've reached the end of Mia's awesome story, and wow, what a ride it was. Let's take a moment to think about what happened. Mia's adventure teaches us something super important. The quiet people, the ones who don't make a big fuss or show off, sometimes they're the ones who can change everything. People like Mia, who might seem ordinary at first, can have big surprises hidden inside them, just waiting for the right moment to shine. Isn't that cool? So next time someone tries to make you feel small or says you don't belong, hold your head up high. You might have a secret strength like Mia did, ready to flip things around and make everything